Have you seen those beautiful faux linen dressers selling online? Today, I'm taking a Curbshopped dresser and turning it into one of these gorgeous faux linen finishes. So just let me get set up and I'll be right back. Let's start. Here's the fun part. As I mentioned, this was a Curbshopped piece, and look at this grime or grease, or I don't even know what was on this. It was filthy. It was in pretty rough shape. It had about 3 or 4 different paint colors on it. It was chipping. It was flaking. The drawers were in need of some repair. But again, when I saw it on the side of the road, I saw the potential. I started by removing the hardware so I could get a good cleaning even under where these wood knobs were. A super quick tip: if you ever remove furniture knobs and the screws are rusted and they don't want to come through, just give them a bang with the back of your screwdriver and that'll usually push them right through. For some reason, the left side of this dresser, the knobs were easy peasy to take off, but the right side, they just did not want to come out. They were kind of rusted in place. So even if I tried unscrewing them, it would not work. So again, here I'm just hitting it with the back of my screwdriver. I'm not worried about any sort of damage because these holes are going to be filled in regardless. So now on to some drawer repairs. The bottom of the drawers were ill-fitting on a couple of these. So I took my furniture mallet and put them back in place to square up the drawer. And then using my nail gun, I just nailed them in place. There was also a piece of wood that came off the side of this drawer. So I took my Titebond wood glue and glued it back on, gave it a clamp, and then also shot it in with my nail gun. While I was inspecting the drawer, seeing what needed repair, look what I found! Lucky penny. Now, it may not be exciting to you, but here in Canada, we don't use pennies anymore. It was probably like a good 10, 12 years ago that the Canadian government decided it actually costs more money to make a penny than the penny was worth. So now our lowest denomination is a nickel. We either round up or round down. And funny story, when me and my sister were driving through the States on a vacation, this was quite a few years ago, we stopped at one of those service stations and went to a McDonald's. I think my bill came to something like $8.96 or something. I handed him $8.95 and the boy stood there looking at me. I stood there looking at the boy. It was a stare down. He's probably wondering, why is this woman not giving me the correct amount? I'm wondering, what is he waiting for? And then only then did it dawn on me, he wants his penny. Anyways, back to the drawer repairs. This drawer, the whole bottom needed removing because it was just all wonky. Here's a great tool quick tip. I don't know if you've ever used these, but they're like mini crowbars. They're little pry bars and nail removers, and they work fantastic to get into really tight wood spaces. Here I'm using it to lift the bottom, and I'm also using it to help me remove the nails. They help remove nails, staplers, etc. And they come in sets of 3, various sizes, like a 12-inch, an 8-inch, and a mini little 4-inch. And again, it works really, really well to get into really tight spaces and remove the nails. Perfect for any furniture repairs. Here, I'm using my hammer to remove the rest of the nails. I know this hammer looks rough, but my dad gave it to me, and I've had it for years. And because my dad is no longer with us, I just cannot get rid of this hammer. It's very sentimental to me. Once I had the bottom out, I squared up the whole drawer. I nailed it in place. Here I've kept the clamp on and I am nailing the bottom back in place. So now that all the repairs were out of the way, now it's time to clean this sucker up. I used a TSP substitute and went over it, probably like at least 3-4 times. Luckily, the greasy substitute or whatever was on top of it, the TSP cut right through and it cleaned up very, very nicely. Once I finished cleaning the inside and the outside meticulously and everything had dried, it was on to filling the old hardware holes. I used Bondo because it is super, super strong and durable. You can drill through it, and best of all, it dries seriously within 10 to 15 minutes. It's ready to sand. So I filled the holes with Bondo. I have a full video tutorial on how I use Bondo to fill old furniture holes and do repairs, so I will link that in the cards above and also in the description down below. After the holes were filled, the Bondo was all dry. Now it was on to sanding, and this was quite a big job. I think I sanded for almost 3 hours. As you can see, there were many layers of paint. I counted at least 3 different colors, and I mean, I always give credit to people who try and update their furniture so they can hold on to it for longer. So I think it's fabulous that somebody took the time and care to give this piece some new life. But to get it back down to a super smooth finish, it did take about 3 hours of sanding. I'm often asked, does a dresser or a piece of furniture need to be sanded totally down to bare wood if you're going to be repainting it? The answer is no. You want to get all the flaking paint off, you want to get the cracked paint off, the chipping paint off, and you want to sand it down so it's really smooth to the touch. Then you can apply your primer, and then you can apply your new painted finish, as I'm going to do in this video. But it does not need to be sanded down to bare wood. It just needs to be sanded down super smooth, silky smooth, flat, and then you can prep it with primer. Here's what this dresser looked like after it was all sanded down, ready for prime. And as you can see, it looks horrible. It looks really awful. You have some of it that's down to the wood. You have a few of the paint colors still showing through, but this is silky smooth, ready for primer, and then ready for paint. I removed all the drawers and put them on the floor, and I started priming with BIN shellacked base primer. And because there is some raw wood showing through, there's some paint, this primer will block any sort of stains or bleed through that will want to peek through. You can see the first coat of this BIN shellac based primer. It doesn't cover a whole lot. At least it doesn't seem like it's doing much, because you can see that the underneath is still peeking through and it looks very, very uneven. But once I paint it with a second coat and I do not see anything coming through at this point, I know that I am safe. And once I paint, whether it's in a white or a lighter color, I am safe, and I know that no bleed through will be peeking through my finished paint finish. I have a full video on how to apply shellac base primer, which I'll include in the cards above and also in the description below. Once the primer was all dry, now it's time to create the faux linen finish. And just a warning here, I'm going to look very bizarre doing this. I also want to give a big thank you to Katie at Salvaged by K. Scott, Christina from Pretty Distressed, and Courtney at Steel Birch Studios. These were the 3 tutorials that I watched to learn how to do this, and I'll definitely link them down below so you guys can go take a peek as well. So the key to this faux fabric or faux painted linen finish is to have something mixed in with your paint that will allow it to stay open, or in other words, stay wet for longer than it usually would. By using an additive such as Floetrol or, say, a glaze, your paint will stay wet for much longer, which will give you the time to play around and create a faux linen finish. So here I am mixing 1 cup of French linen with 1 cup of Floetrol. I did not need this much, but this was way too much. But I do suggest that you mix enough to get through your full project. I definitely overshot this, and I'll explain more about that at the end of the video. But this Floetrol worked really, really well. Once my 50-50 mix of paint and Floetrol was completely mixed together, I dumped it out onto a paper plate. Using a roller, I started rolling it onto the side. Now, I started on the side because with this, you have to work in sections. And I thought, well, the side is not the very first thing that you look at. So I thought it was safe to start trying this technique on the side of my dresser. Oddly enough, I think my sides turned out the very, very best. And I'm going to explain why in a moment. So I had bought 3 different brushes from the dollar store, a small little dusting brush. I bought a thicker broom brush and then one in between. And here I am testing which one I actually prefer using. Now, all the videos that I've seen this technique done with, they're holding onto the broom with their hand and they are creating the faux technique by running the broom bristles up and down the piece and then across the piece. So you're going to cross hatch. But honestly, you know what? Doing it by hand and being so close up to the dresser, my lines were so wonky. And I know that linen is not a perfect finish. I mean, it does have some variances in it because it is a fabric. It's a cloth. It's not going to be perfectly even, but mine were very wonky. I did not like the looks of it. But when I used the broom with the handle and I moved my body instead of the wrist, I know that this looks really odd, but standing back from the piece and actually moving my whole body up and down while holding on to the handle created such a nice finish. So I opted to keep the handle on the broom and use it that way because that's what was working for me. So as I always say, do what makes you comfortable. I know that I looked really odd doing this, like really odd with this long handle, but it worked for me. It felt much more comfortable and my lines turned out way more straight. Because I had ample time and the paint was still very workable, I went over each section numerous times. So again, I would take the broom and go vertically up and down, and then I would go horizontally, and then I would go vertically again, and then I would go horizontally, and I just repeated this on each section of the dresser and on the drawers. Nick was having a good laugh, saying it was the first time he saw me enthused using a broom. Every time I used the broom to add the lines into the finish, I would wipe the excess paint off on the drop cloth that I was using. That way, when I went in for the next stroke, I was going in with a dry brush. And that's really all this technique is to create the faux linen finish. It's just dry brushing and creating those lines, those crosshatch lines as you would see in a linen piece of fabric. It's really quite easy and it's quite fun. The body of the piece I painted just in the French linen, so you can see the contrast from the frame to the linen painted drawers and sides. To make sure the drawers were all done fairly evenly, I lined them up on the floor, and this way I got a bird's eye view of the contrast between each drawer because I wanted the finish to look even. So here's where it got a little trickier for me. Doing the faux linen finish on the top of this dresser. Here I am rolling on the paint, and then I took the broom and I tried doing my faux linen finish. Now it turned out okay, but not as nice as the sides and the drawers actually turned out. And I think the reason being is because of the angle that I was brushing it. If I was to do this again, and I will be doing this finish again because I actually just love it, I'm going to lean the dresser back and plop it up on, say, another piece of furniture. So the top is looking at me kind of at a 45-degree angle. And I think this would be much more comfortable doing a perfect faux finish top. And I know there's no such thing as perfection. I mean, I'm not saying that my lines are perfect, and that they even have to be, but I just found that the sides and the drawers turned out so beautifully, and the top not as great as the sides and the drawers. But that's the beauty of working on a curb shop piece. I know in my blog on Salvaged Inspirations, I've said numerous times that when I have a curb shop piece of furniture, I love experimenting and trying new techniques and paint finishes on it because you got nothing to lose. I mean, I didn't pay a penny. I found a penny, but I didn't pay even a penny for this dresser. So trying out a new paint technique is fabulous. After I painted the drawers, the top, and the sides in the faux linen finish, the remaining part of the dresser was painted in French linen with no painting technique on it because I wanted you to see the contrast between the French linen finish and the regular just painted color. I let the dresser dry 100% overnight and I came back down for the finishing details. And I found these beautiful handles on Amazon. And I also use my template, my hardware template, which I also bought from Amazon to measure where to put them. And it makes installing hardware a lot easier and a lot quicker. I'll include a link to this template down below in the description area. Once I had all the hardware installed, I added a little bit of gold gilding wax to the very bottom of the painted feet, and I was finished. So let's take a look at this again. Here's what I started with. Here's the curb shop before. And here is the after. Faux linen painted dresser. Woohoo! I'm so happy with it. And I would do things a little bit differently next time, but this was an awesome practice piece for me. It really was. A cost breakdown, the Floetrol I bought for about $20. I used about a quarter of it. So let's say $5 for Floetrol, $40 worth of paint. It's a 32 ounce. I used 8 ounces. So let's say $5 in paint. Having said that, I only needed about half of the Floetrol and the paint that I used, so $5 is being very generous. The brushed brass pulls, I bought a 10-pack for, I think it was $36 or $37, so let's say $40 for the brushed brass pulls, and maybe $5 for sandpaper and incidentals there. So we're looking at $55 total, and that's on the very generous side. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had as much fun with this project as I did and it sparked some ideas. If so, feel free to give it a like and a thumbs up. Also, I love hearing from you, so leave a comment down below and be sure to subscribe before you leave today and hit that bell so you get notified with every new video that I upload. You can also find me over at salvagedinspirations.com, where I have over 500 furniture painting tutorials teaching you how to make your furniture beautiful. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day and I'll see you again soon. Bye guys.